Hello there. Welcome to RICO'S Garage. We're in the middle of getting our YJ ready for the trail this year, and upon doing the inspection and checking out some other things, which I've already shown to you in another video, came across the fact that these front wheel bearings, there's more mud in here than there is grease. We need to address that. And I figured rather than just glazing over and telling you, hey, we repack the bearings or we replace the bearings, let's actually show you what's involved in this. All your older stuff that most people upgrade into YJs and TJs or even JKs for that matter is going to have packable bearings. Most of your trailers still have packable bearings, so there's still a need to know how to do this stuff. And I'm going to walk you through on this Dana 60. It has some aftermarket stuff on it, so it won't totally word for word apply to if you're working on a stock Chevy 1-ton, but it'll give you enough of a guideline what to go by, and the procedure is still the same, and just some of the tools, nuts, bolts, whatnot may be different. I'll try to explain that to you. But as you can see, we've already got the vehicle up on the lift. We're not going to tires and wheels off. Don't give me any shit about using the lift. If you had one, you'd use one too. But if you don't have a lift, raise up the front, put it on jack stands, raise up, secure it, take the tires and wheels off the front, and I've already got the drive slugs removed. If you're working on a stock truck, you're going to take the locking hub apart, which, like I say, I run the solid steel drive flanges in this one. When we go to the 3+3, we're still going to run lockouts on that, so we'll get you more into lockouts on another video. For now, we're going to focus on this trail rig. Tool-wise, it's not really going to take a lot. It's really pretty mind-numbing how simple it is to do the teardown. The only thing special you're going to need is a socket to fit the spindle nuts in here. The Dana 60 uses a 4-pin lock nut, which I'll show you once we get it out. 44s and 10 bolts also take a 4-pin, but it's a smaller 4-pin. If you don't have this socket and you're going to be wheeling something, I'd strongly recommend you get one. They're not that expensive. But if you don't, and money's tight as it always is, you can get this on the freeloader tool at any of your parts stores, AutoZone, Advance, or O'Reilly's. I strongly recommend you get one. You will use it. Get a ratchet handle to fit that special socket. Whatever it takes to remove your caliper. In this case, it's a 3/8 Allen. This setup uses an aftermarket kit that uses brakes off of a 3/4 ton front end mounted to this 60 to get rid of the big calipers, because I used to run 15-inch wheels on this. Even if you don't run 15s on your 60, I still recommend you get this kit, because the 1-ton calipers are way overkill and very heavy for no more efficient than they are. All you're doing is carrying extra weight. These 3/4 ton units stop this Jeep just fine. You're also going to need something to secure your caliper with. This is just a plain Jane NS hook. I think I got it off a swap meet somewhere. But use that, zip tie, bungee cord, whatever you can find. Just don't let the caliper swing by the hose. That's bad deal. It tends to break stuff. So let's get to it. First thing we're going to do is remove the caliper. Remove the caliper. Put our S hook in. Secure it in a manner that doesn't have too much tension on the brake hose. Right there works just fine. As you may or may not be able to see, there's an awful lot of slop in there. Sometimes you can get by with just pulling the outer bearing out, checking the condition of the grease, snugging it back up. But we're a little past that on this operation. So, next thing we're going to want to do, remove the outer nut. It may take some finagling to get the socket to fit on there just right, but make sure it's seated good before you go cranking on it. Else you're going to risk tearing up your tool or your nuts. You don't ever want to tear up your tool or your nuts. It's just a bad deal. Take you a magnet. Take you a magnet. Grab a hold of your lock washer that goes in between. And there's a lot of dirt in there. Then we take our inner nut off. Get our magnets, fish things out, drop them on the floor. Now, it's real easy for me to tell you just to remove the outer nut, remove the inner nut, but that doesn't necessarily help you understand what we're working with. So let me take a minute and explain this to you. Then I'll explain it in a little greater detail when we go put it together. But for right now, how this works is we have an inner nut, a locking washer, and an outer nut. This inner nut, I don't know if you can see it or not, has a little pin in there. The lock washer, which is kind of hard to tell because it's filthy, has a series of holes in it. And then a keyway that keys into the spindle. Well, essentially it's together like that. So what you're doing is removing the outer nut, then you remove the lock washer, then you remove the inner nut. I'll go into a little greater detail when we go put it together as far as how everything works. It just kind of gives you a rough idea. We'll put those on there for now. Then we simply pull the hub and rotor assembly off. It's also supposed to come off there a lot easier than that. Oh boy, this is not good. Doesn't want to come off, kids. Okay, what is happening is our inner bearing is frozen onto the spindle. It's been ran so long. This is going to be fun. But we'll get it. We got it. This thing's junk. And we can fix it. Here's what's happened. We eventually ended up just pulling away the inner seal out of the hub. And our outer bearing's trashed. Kind of figured this. That's why I went ahead and ordered new stuff. Now we just went to the other extreme. So I guess we'll show you how to fix this predicament. What's happened here is there's so much crud and everything here. This bearing cannot come off. I'm going to try to pry it off. If that don't work, we're going to get a little more violent with it. So the first thing I'm going to try is a pry bar. Trying to do is just walk this off side by side. Now I got it started. See if I can walk it off with a chisel. No, still a little too tight for that. Got it! Junk. Normally, you'd leave the spindle on. Just take a rag, wipe all the excess grease off. This one's going to need a little refurb. So, pull it off. Every time I do this, I tell myself how much I hate mud. But then, sure enough, my dumb ass will hit the muddiest, gnarliest trail that we can find. Turns out it's a good thing we didn't make it wheeling last weekend, because this would not have made it. With that bearing seized up on there, it had just been a matter of time before it ripped the rollers off, and then we're screwed. I lost a bearing in that other side once before and completely destroyed the spindle, and that was expensive. I don't want to do that again. If your 60 has never been a part to your knowledge, and you're tearing it down for a wheel bearing service, go ahead and pull the spindle off. And the reason I tell you to do that is on the OEM spindles, there's a needle bearing inside here. Now this one, I've installed the aftermarket Delron bushings in here, because this is the kind of crap I do with this Jeep, and it just destroys the needle bearings pretty much after one shot. So I put the Delron in here that I can clean up and reuse. If you're keeping it factory, you can go to any parts store and get the bearing kit that comes with the new needle bearing seal. But if it's a wheeler, look up the Delron bushings. There's several people that make them. I believe I got these from Longfield. Frantic Motorsports sells them. Aftermarket caliper bracket. Just lay it the way you took it off so you remember how everything goes. Pull it out, check our U-joint. It's good to fight another day. I greased it earlier when I inspected it. I'll just clean all this up. We'll be good to go. I'm going to go over and rip the other side apart, then start washing everything in the solvent tank. It's pretty mindless stuff. There's not much need for an explanation, so I'll just kind of time lapse through all that. If you don't have a parts washer, just go to your local dollar store, get you a plastic tub, toss some kerosene in there, get you one of those cheap scratch brushes at the parts store, and clean everything out. I'm not reusing these bearings, but if you were, go ahead, clean your bearings down to bare metal completely, clean your hub inside and out, and don't reuse your seals. Buy some new seals from the parts store. I'm going to get to ripping the other side apart, do some cleaning, and then we'll go a little more in depth after that. Passenger side's not so bad at all. There's a little sign of a little bit of water intrusion, but nothing like that left side. Show you what we're dealing with here. You can see where the bearings were riding, how it's a little discolored, and we got a little bit of surface rust on there. I'm just going to take this emery cloth and polish it and get that cleaned up. I'm not trying to machine it by any means, but it's in pretty good shape overall. I'm just going to hit it with the emery cloth and try to polish it up. That'll work. Ship it! Driver's side's apart, screwed. Passenger side, as far as the spindle's concerned, is ready to go back together. Now on to the daunting task of cleaning everything. Alright, the races are out. I'm going to go over, do some parts washing, and you don't really care to see that, so I'll pause the camera for a minute, go over and wash the parts, come get you when we're ready for reassembly. Okay, here's what we're up against. This how to replace your bearings and repack on your Dana 60 video is turned into how to save your Dana 60 that is total junk. Like I don't know, it's pretty freaking rough. And this is my fault. This is just neglect. It's all it is. There's nothing else to say about it. We got this thing really freaking wet, really muddy in August, and it's set neglected in the barn. Summit has this spindle in stock for 124 bucks coming out of Ohio, so a couple days I can have one. Thing is, today's Sunday, so even if I order it now, it's still not going to ship till tomorrow. So I'm going to try to save this emery cloth, and if I can, fine. If not, we'll just order another one tomorrow morning. But I don't know. Let's see what we can do with it.
Now I know that Hon is a wonderful performer, and take me back to a beautiful summer day on a mountain in the desert.
I think this thing's screwed.
Also,
Just gonna go after it with the wire wheel. Okay, disclaimer time. I got it cleaned up good enough for what it's for and who it's for. What you got to understand, this is going on my YJ Juggy, and it gets trailered everywhere. It's never driven on the street, allegedly. There's been reports of it going out and doing donuts in some areas, for all you know, but that's alleged. You have no proof. Anyway, get off track. This is a trail-only vehicle, and that's why I'm going to run this spindle. $125 for a new spindle that's just going to get rusty and do the same thing in a couple of years? No. So I got it good enough to use. I would not do this on something I had to drive on the highway. I would not do this to this 3+3. I will do this to this Juggy, because this is a second, maybe third gear only vehicle. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. So I'm going to finish cleaning, put it together, but I wanted to let you know. Do not do this to something you have to drive down the highway. If you're stuck in the middle of nowhere and you have to get home, okay, fine. Fix it right when you can. But this roadkill, hack job, grinder, emery cloth repair will be fine for what it is. That's enough of that. Back to work. for the purpose of illustration, I'll put our bearings on here. You can see inner and outer bearing. Okay, we'll spin our inner nut on, tang facing outwards. And then with the hub and everything, it's a little more intricate, but what you want to do is line up this tang with the keyway on the spindle, and then one of these holes to make sure that that pin goes through. Now you'll have to adjust this nut and try it several times in and out. That's where your magnet comes in handy. Fish this in with your magnet. But make sure that everything lines up. And don't go too tight. You know, just go just a little bit. If it's too much, back it off just a hair. A little loose is better than too tight. Now you don't want it falling off, but a little loose is better than too tight. Then once that's all lined up, then the outer will go on, of course, with your socket and everything. That locks together. Bring you over here so I can illustrate a little better. But see, what you've got is inner nut, preload and everything, lock washer, and then the outer nut is pressing this washer into the nut so it can't back off. If you just had one nut, there's no way to keep everything from backing out. So you need, that's why it's important that everything be keyed in and locked in together. This one's going to be just a little past snug, enough to preload the bearings. This one here we want fairly tight. We want about 50 foot-pounds of torque on that. To keep, and then everything is locked together and it can't go. They actually make some pretty nice aftermarket deals that does away with all this, but it's expensive, and as you can tell by the spindle hackery, I'm a little on the cheap side. I thought I'd take the opportunity to show you that while I had the spindle here in front of me. Here's a better look at that Delron bushing I told you about. We want to make sure before we put this spindle in, whether you have the Delron bushing or you have the factory needle bearing, make sure you put a good coat of grease on that. Either way, it's key that that's lubed. It gets no other lube from any other source. So you want to make sure you pack it with plenty of lube. Okay, we've got everything cleaned up. We're getting ready to go back into the reassembly process. We're going to bolt the spindle back on. The thing you got to remember with these Dana 60s, this pattern is drilled offset, so this spindle only goes on one way, and that's with the keyway up on this side. So get that lined up. And it's an interference fit, so you have to persuade it on.